Greetings, YouTube. So, the first trailer I have seen for the new Mad Max movie dropped yesterday. And one of my subscribers was nice enough to send me a link, thank you. And I took a look at it, and it looks a lot better than I thought it was going to. Now, I loved the first, and I loved the second, and I thought the third was the weakest, though it was full of lots of great meme fodder. There were lots of things that came out of the Thunderdome film that have just proliferated themselves over the intervening years, all over the internet. There are some scenes in there that were a lot of fun, but it was undoubtedly the weaker of the three films. So I was looking at this one with a little bit of trepidation. However, it doesn't look that bad, so that's cool. But watching it, and it's the first time I've looked at a Mad Max movie in quite a while, it really brought to mind something which I am reminded of Sam Kinison. Why are they living there? Go live where the food is. Why are they living in the barren wastelands? Now, the basic idea behind the Mad Max universe has been that the society broke down. Society's just basically collapsed under its own inertia. There was resource issues and some very, very minor nuclear exchanges. Mostly it was the resources. The resources just weren't there anymore. The oil dried up. We hit peak oil, and then we went on the other side, and things went downhill very fast. So there wasn't a world-spanning nuclear war. It was a very small event, and for the most part, particularly in the hinterlands, things just stopped functioning. Okay? So I can understand, well, that happened in the first, maybe even in the second film, why they were where they were. But after that, why didn't they bug out? That was the entire point of the second and the third film. Bugging out to better environs. And yet, in the fourth film, we're still living in the blasted wastelands. Why? And you see this again and again. If you look at Fallout, the Fallout universe has been destroyed to a point where life itself would stop. The planet would not be able to support human life in the Fallout universe. Flat out. The only thing that would be crawling around on the surface would be cockroaches. Alright? They've pushed it too far. It's gone over the top. Now I realize that in the Fallout universe, that kind of absolute absurd satirical commentary on the the Cold Era way of thinking is kind of the point, but it rankles me as being even more absurd than it has to be. It's because it's gone beyond cartoon and into utter absurdity. But it's not the first one that does that. Lots of post-apocalyptic settings take things way, way too far. So it got me thinking, how much arable land would there be left, even in your most absurd idea for a post-apocalyptic setting? So I started playing with some numbers in my head, then I came home and I started playing with some numbers online. Alrighty, so I'm going to take the United States for an example, and I'm going to use the population number of 300 million because it's a nice round number. So we're going to assume that at the moment of the war, okay, we'll give the war as a definition of the first year from when the first event happens until the last event happens. So from dust up to the last resource has been expended in the military level. So within the first year, we're going to say 90% of humanity is wiped out. Gone. The possibility of that happening approaches a probability of 0, but that's okay. We're just going to say, for this over-the-top example, 90% of humanity is gone. Okay. And we're also going to assume that 90% of all the land in America is made uninhabitable. Okay? 3.947 million square miles, and 90% of it is made uninhabitable. And I'm going to even push it even further and say half of the remaining land. So only 5% of the land remains, because the other 5% is simply inaccessible in the sense that it isn't types of land that can be used for producing food and healthy water and animals and things like that. So it's just land that is inaccessible through natural reasons. Okay? Alrighty, so we're down to 5% of our land. If you do the math, and 5% of the land is left, with a population of 30 million people, that means that for every surviving individual, there are 4 acres of healthy, functioning land. 4 acres. A single acre, if well maintained, will support multiple people. 2 acres, relatively poorly maintained, will support multiple people. Well, we're going to be nice and say that it would support 1 comfortably. Alright? But everyone gets 4 acres. A family of 4, your classic nuclear family, would have 16 acres of land to play with. 16 acres! That's enough for pastures. Even on 4 acres, you could have chickens and pigs and goats. Okay? Cattle will be more difficult, but not impossible. Obviously, you're going to have some of them ranging in territories that are not the healthiest. So, there you have it. Why are all these people living in the blasted wasteland? Why are they not moving to the rivers and the valleys and the coasts? Because water is life. And the ocean is the ecosystem that's going to be affected the least from a nuclear exchange, which is never going to happen on the levels as seen in Fallout and most post-apocalyptic settings. And the one that's going to bounce back the fastest. So why do people... Is it just pure aesthetics? Does everybody really want that horrible blasted wasteland look that you see in the Book of Eli and Damnation Alley and the Mad Max films and any number of other post-apocalyptic films or books or role-playing games or computer games? Does everyone love that aesthetic so much they're willing just to toss any kind of idea of logic right out the window? Because that's what it looks like to me. That people are so in love with that idea that they're willing to forget that reality isn't quite what you think it is. And remember, I'm willing to accept Gamma World. Alright? But there has to be some kind of underlying reality under all that Marvel comic universe that has to still function. And if you've broken the ecology to the point where life itself cannot support humans, then you don't have a game. It's also one of the reasons I don't like to play post-apocalyptic games that are just after or during the aftermath, because it is a situation where I can project myself into it, and that is never a good thing for a person that suffers from anxiety and depression. I do not want to be postulating what I would be doing in those situations, because I probably would either roll up and blow away, or I would get very pragmatic and do things that would strip me of my humanity. And I think I am well capable of either direction. In fact, I know I am capable of going in either direction. It's not something I like to think about. So that's why I prefer my post-apocalyptic settings to be dozens or even a couple of 100 years, even though that makes no sense. It wouldn't be a post-apocalyptic setting 100 years, or 200 years after the event. 200 years after the event is Star Trek. Okay? Life moves on. But I like the aesthetic that is in Gamma World, or in the Mutant Epoch, though I think the Mutant Epoch, again, takes it a little bit too far. Same thing I'm talking about here. The world is blasted to a point where it would not be no matter how many missiles flew and how many missiles functioned. And, pardon me, in reality, they would never all fly and they would never all work, and the world would not be broken the way it is. I prefer a world that is just overgrown. A world that life without us. There are plants and there are animals going about their business. Yes, they're going about their business in a world that's quite possibly got toxins and levels of nuclear waste that they don't now, but there still would be lots and lots of places that are going along perfectly fine without humanity, and that humanity could repopulate without danger. So, tell me, what do you think? Are you okay with that completely absurdly over-the-top aesthetic? Is that aesthetic more important to you than any kind of logical basis in reality? Are you just going to hand-wave that and not worry about it? Or do you need it to have some kind of sense? Does it need to make some logical sense to you? Otherwise, you don't have the buy-in to enjoy the process. Because I need that buy-in. So I need a world that looks like it would function. It looks like the plants and the animals and the air and the oceans would all keep functioning to the point where humans could actually exist. I'm intrigued knowing, and if nothing else, maybe we'll start an interesting conversation.